Impeachment is imminent. The filing of articles of impeachment is imminent. We are currently in a countdown to impeachment.
When were congressional leaders notified? How long before the attacks took place?
Sir, to your first question, you know, the risk has clearly been rising over the last few weeks in the region. Based on that and not a particular awareness of this operation, we've made smart decisions to minimize the risk to U.S. forces in the region.
So they were given no advance warning?
No, sir.
And congressional?
They were notified after the planes were safely out. Well, we complied with the notification requirements of the War Powers Act.
After the attacks, they were notified?
They were immediately thereafter.
So this should come as a surprise to absolutely nobody because this is simply what they do. But the Democrats are once again completely dropping the ball on this Iran issue. They are incapable of avoiding the self-inflicted wounds that clearly explain a lot about why their approval rating currently sits in the 20s. Because as I've been saying, guys, you know, of all of the potential stupid hills to die on that the Democrat Party has picked in the past couple of months, whether that was defending Kilmar Abrego Garcia or opposing the highly popular Trump agenda on illegal immigration, or you even had the governor of Maine still defending men playing women's sports in 2025, despite the obvious 80-20 polling on this issue. On this front, on potential war with Iran, basically opposing that, I guess you could say the left going back to its original roots before they became the party of the neocons, this, I was saying, was the one thing Democrats might be able to actually score political points and build actual momentum on, because not only is the idea of a protracted conflict, whether or not that happens, okay, I'm just saying if you're a Democrat, this ought to be the strategy. Not only is the idea of another forever war something that is unpopular with most Americans, but historically it is an actual principled, like, liberal issue in this country, right? We remember Iraq, we even remember back to the Vietnam War and all of that. This is the left's thing. This is their strength, being anti-war. But I think currently you're watching the Democrats run into two systemic problems that are kneecapping their actual ability to create here an effective opposition yet again. And I think issue number one is because, as I mentioned earlier, the Democrats basically have become the party of the neocons. You look at the very people who staffed the top levels of the Biden administration, or the fact that much of the Democrat Party's top mouthpieces and leadership are now like former Bush officials and all these people, right? It's kind of hard, first of all, for the party to even unite on what they're going to say here, because literally half of their party, whether they say it publicly or not, is in exact support of what's going on here. And in fact, they might be making the criticism that they're not going far enough, right? Yesterday, actually, in the video, we covered the fact that CNN's Van Jones actually basically came out in support of what Trump was doing and was saying to the progressives, hey, stop protesting against war. Stop protesting for once for a cause that's kind of popular, kind of might actually work, number one. And you also see here U.S. Senator John Fetterman uttering similar sentiments, agreeing with President Trump. So it's like they can't even unite, right? As he says here, as I've long maintained, this was the correct move by the president. Iran is the world's leading sponsor of terrorism and cannot have nuclear capabilities. I'm grateful for and salute the finest military in the world. So a little bit of some issues there. So that's number one, right? It's hard to fully be against what Trump is doing as a Democrat when you are just as much a neocon party as the Republicans are in 2025. But I think issue number two is even when they do try to build opposition, even when they do try to actually make an argument against Trump in this regard, they just can't help themselves. As a matter of fact, you may see here, I believe this is a headline out of the New York Times, if I'm not mistaken, but one of those mainstream media outlets. Of all the things you could criticize Trump for right now, right? Oh, he's starting war, he's doing this, he's doing that. Those are the criticisms you would levy if you were anti-Trump, right? Apparently, their big concern, their big criticism here is the fact that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth did not respect the proper gender pronouns. Okay, I kid you not, right? We just talked about gender pronouns. Again, gender pronouns, while he was talking and giving the briefing here in regards to the recent military strike, as you can see. They actually wrote this, by the way. Quote, in the briefing, Hegseth referred to B-2 pilots as our boys on those bombers yet both men and women have trained to fly them. You didn't respect, hey, females are pilots too. By the way, they don't even know what the genders were of the actual pilots who flew them, but no, yeah, the military is not inclusive. It's not diverse enough. That's the real criticism. The real criticism is not potentially that, hey, you know, if this all goes wrong, if Trump's gamble doesn't pay off, you're in Iraq War 2.0. No, forget that. We support the Iraq War 2.0, but you got to be woke when you do it, right? You got to respect the proper gender pronouns as you drop bombs on foreign countries. As I said, right, this is a prime example of the Democrats literally not being able to get out of their own way. This should be an easy issue for them to attack Trump on or like make an argument, and they simply cannot do it. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we also got to show you the hilarious chronicle, as apparently AOC and other Democrats are now trying to launch a new impeachment push against Donald Trump. That is right. So Sri Thanadar, you know, he fell flat on his face. Recently, we also covered how Jamie Raskin and other Democrats were trying to impeach Trump for the deployment of the National Guard to Los Angeles. Now they're saying they want to impeach Trump for what he did in Iran. I think you're basically seeing their pretext for the 2026 midterms. If they win the House, they're going to impeach Trump anyway, and they're already giving you the playbook, right? Basically, whatever happened this week, let's impeach Trump for that, and this is the new push. So we'll get into all of that here in today's video. First, though, folks, do us a big favor. If you enjoy the content, as usual, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Subscribing here, guys, is not only the best way to support our content, but it also ensures you stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And with that said, so, you know, you have some Democrats, again, literally in support of the strikes, which kind of makes the party messaging just a little bit coherent. But this is basically the mass response you have heard out of House Democrats. For instance, one example here, Representative Jerry Nadler, he says the president's decision to bomb Iran was grossly unconstitutional. You're going to keep hearing them say this. This was unconstitutional what Trump did. Since only Congress has the power to declare war, the president's action will lead, without a doubt, to many American, Israeli, and Iranian deaths and must be condemned in the strongest possible terms. Well, Nadler actually does not know that, and that's kind of a crazy thing to say preemptively. But nonetheless, again, this is the argument. Unconstitutional for the president to take military action in foreign countries without the approval of Congress. Now, immediately, if you're an astute individual, you're a thoughtful person, you might find a little bit of irony in Democrat politicians saying that, and it kind of seems a little bit strange. Suddenly now this is an issue if you've followed, I don't know, the past decade or more of U.S. foreign policy, more than a decade, by the way. But let's hold that thought for a second, and I want to keep showing you here what the Democrats are now making an argument about. U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren, a very famous Democrat who apparently is very slighted here that the Native Americans are not involved in this effort or the current foreign policy issues. Nonetheless, the United States, she says, should not wage war against Iran. Okay, fair enough. I don't disagree with that statement, actually. Yeah, the U.S. should not be. Okay, but here you go. Donald Trump's bombing of Iran is unconstitutional. Here she goes again. Only Congress can declare war, and the Senate must vote immediately to prevent another war. This is a horrific war of choice. So you hear that again. You might be asking yourself, wait a minute. I think I remember a country called Libya. I remember a country called Kosovo. I remember actually Iraq, Syria. Hold that thought 1 second here. I want to show you also what AOC said. She's going one step further. She's not just saying it was unconstitutional. She's not just criticizing it. She is publicly endorsing the push to impeach. As you can see, AOC says the president's disastrous decision to bomb Iran without authorization is a grave violation of the Constitution and congressional war powers. He has impulsively risked launching a war that may ensnare us for future generations. It is absolutely and clearly, she says, grounds for impeachment. And there you have her basically showing off the new Democrat push. Hey, last week we wanted to impeach Trump because of the National Guard. Now we want to impeach him for, in their eyes, right, unconstitutionally and illegally using executive power to carry out a military strike in a sovereign country. Now, here's the deal. Okay, here's the truth about this matter. Is that I think Trump aside, you want to remove big picture, just look at the last several decades. is there a legitimate argument to be had on presidential war powers and whether some of it goes too far or should more power be delegated to Congress, etc.? Yes, I actually think that's fair. Trump aside, this is not a discussion about Trump. I just think in general, you look at Obama bombing Syria, all that stuff. I do think to some degree, it is reasonable to say in the modern world, you have to give the president a little more deference because of the speed of war. But sure, there's a legitimate conversation to be had about war powers and what they should be. However, the problem with what AOC and all these Democrats are saying is that, okay, that is a legislative debate to be had. Sure. I think it's a virtue signal when you are literally the party that stood by, like Elizabeth Warren, for instance, Jerry Nadler, they were both in Congress, did nothing as Barack Obama ruthlessly drone struck Syria, which was never a declaration of war there, right? Libya, hey, remember that? He literally just started bombing Libya and was pushing directly for regime change already, and it obviously happened. No authorization from Congress. Even, by the way, the strike against Osama bin Laden, taking him out. You know what happened there? Okay, yes, we were at war in Afghanistan and all that, but guess what? The U.S. went into a foreign country called Pakistan that we were not at war with, okay? No congressional authorization. He just did it. So you may be asking the question here, right? Number one, okay, so hypocrisy aside, whatever. As I said, it's annoying, obnoxious, virtue signaling. It's just ridiculous to hear these people say it. It's kind of like, okay, no one's listening. But on top of that, right, here's the problem. You can disagree. You can want war powers to be returned back to Congress. But no, fundamentally, what Donald Trump did is not unconstitutional. And the very reason for that is because the very legislative powers, or the war powers, I should say, that have been delegated to the president by the legislative body, by Congress, through laws that have been passed over the years, did indeed give Trump the authority to do this, as they also gave Obama the authority to ruthlessly bomb Syria, Libya, and I think what was that, 20 freaking countries he drone struck. It gave Bill Clinton the ability to go into Kosovo. It gave George Bush the ability to go after Al-Qaeda, etc., etc., etc. Why do we say that? Well, first and foremost, right, despite this argument that, oh, it's unconstitutional. Okay, let's actually break this down. First of all, I think it's worth noting here the War Powers Act of 1973, which interestingly was actually a measure that was meant to restrain executive power, right? This has to do with the basically political unpopularity of the Vietnam War, the controversy over Richard Nixon bombing the nation of Cambodia to take out the Ho Chi Minh Trail and all that. Okay, so this act, what does it say? It's a congressional resolution, yes, designed to limit the U.S.'s ability to initiate or escalate military actions abroad. Very specifically, right? When committing U.S. forces, this is from the Nixon Library, by the way, to an armed conflict without the consent of Congress, it stipulates that the president must notify Congress within 48 hours of military action and prohibits armed forces from remaining there for more than 60 days. In other words, unless Trump invades Iran and keeps our forces there for more than 60 days, no, he does not need the authorization of Congress. By the way, nor did Bill Clinton bomb in Kosovo, nor did Obama in Libya, etc., etc. So this is the meltdown. Oh, it's unconstitutional. It's not in any ways unconstitutional. And again, if you're probably just thinking without even knowing this, wait, if it's unconstitutional, how did past presidents do like way more bombings than this? Suddenly one airstrike and it's the end of the world. Oh, Congress needs to reclaim its power. War powers, all this. Where's the virtue signaling coming from? Well, keep this in mind here, ladies and gentlemen. I think it is also worth noting, okay? So, by the way, guess who voted that? Congress. Guess who gave through its legislative body? By the way, if they want to take it back now, okay, that's one thing. But through the decades, Congress has given the president broad authority to command the military, even more broad than in the original Constitution. You cannot claim unconstitutionality or impeachment because the president is in compliance with the very laws that you gave him, okay? He's not been on Iran for more than 60 days. He, by the way, notified you guys within 48 hours, so everything was in compliance, etc. So there you have it. I think it is also worth noting here, if you want to talk about a 21st century law here, that the AUMF, right, the Authorization for Use of Military Force, a law that was passed in the wake of 9/11, was a joint resolution of U.S. Congress which became law. This, of course, authorized the use of U.S. armed forces against those responsible for the September 11th attacks. This authorized the president to have the authority here to use, quote, all necessary and appropriate force against those for whom he determined, quote, planned, authorized, committed, and aided the September 11th attacks, or who harbored said persons or groups. Now, here's what's interesting, okay. So the AUMF grants the power to the president to determine both who to target and what actions to take. Basically, in the wake of 9/11, by the way, you could have your criticisms of these laws. I understand that. I understand where someone like, for instance, Thomas Massie is coming from in this regard to say, look, maybe the founding fathers didn't want this. Maybe the president has too much authority in the executive area. But that's why I say it's a virtue signal. It's obnoxious. It's ridiculous for people who stood around for the past 20, 30, 40 years of this stuff to suddenly now, after Trump does one airstrike, to say, oh, this is the end of the world. Now we have to rein in our power. It's ridiculous, right? Anyways, this is obviously different from a declaration of war. It limits the president's use of full military force, etc. But here's what's interesting, right? Since its passage in 2001, U.S. presidents have interpreted their authority under the AUMF to extend beyond al-Qaeda and the Taliban in Afghanistan to apply to other groups as well as other geographic locations due to the act's omissions of any specific area of operations, by the way. Think, for instance, something like Syria. Yeah, I don't know, maybe. The adoption of this law does not require the targets to be state actors, does not require them to be state actors, but it can be state actors here, by the way, aka the Iranians, but can include non-state actors such as individual persons. In December 2016, the Office of President Obama published a brief interpreting the AUMF as providing congressional authorization for the use of force against al-Qaeda and other militant groups. Today, the full list of actors the U.S. military is fighting or believes is classified, etc. So again, the executive authority here to do this literally exists, and the push, yes, to impeach Trump over this is ridiculous. It is performative. It is just nonsensical, okay? Again, if you want to have the debate about war powers, that's fine. But don't get mad at Trump because he's violating existing he's following existing powers that were already given to him by the Congress. It's ridiculous. It was not unconstitutional. I mean, it's just very straight up, okay? And again, the politicians who were supporters of Obama, really, that's the people who are telling us, okay. Now that in mind, showing you, by the way, all the laws we talked about now, I guess the new criticism by the Democrats, as you'll see here from Senator Adam Schiff, is that apparently that the Democrat leadership of Congress was not notified beforehand, before the attack, right? The argument here is basically, oh, you have the obligation to tell us Democrats beforehand, right? Tell the whole world, and essentially, I don't know, knowing the Democrats' behavior, likely endanger the operational security and safety of our troops, considering Democrats have loose lips to probably immediately leak it to the New York Times. I think it's pretty common sense why, if you're about to carry out a top secret military strike, you should try to tell as few people as possible, but especially, by the way, also, given how successful it was in terms of its secrecy, maybe you don't go tell your political opposition that is literally trying to sabotage everything you do at the moment. I mean, hey, maybe that's a smart idea, right? But as you can see, Adam Schiff is now making the argument this was not constitutional because of that fact. And yeah, no word from Schiff yet, obviously, on his praise for President Obama after his military operation to capture and kill Osama bin Laden in 2011 was, yes, not brought before Congress first. And by the way, went outside the bounds, guys, of the normal war in Afghanistan, because guess what? Osama was in Pakistan. So I didn't hear anything back then about going into a sovereign country. That's an act of war. Yeah, it's an act of war also to put U.S. troops on the ground in Pakistan. I'm not saying the situations are the same. I understand directly bombing their government, etc. But from the legislative argument here, you guys are ridiculous. Nonetheless, take a listen to what Adam Schiff apparently has to say in response to Trump not telling me beforehand. For obvious reasons. Take a listen.
This was not constitutional, was not lawful in the absence of a declaration by Congress. And so the administration should have come to Congress. We will have a vote on a war powers resolution. But there's a reason to bring this to Congress, and it is you want the Congress bought in. You want the American people bought in on an action this substantial that could lead to a major outbreak of war.
I think it's very notable and interesting here, by the way, the type of almost fence-sitting rhetoric that you will hear from people like Adam Schiff, who, by the way, is a gigantic warmonger. Okay, don't pretend like this guy's suddenly anti-war. No, what he's essentially saying there is, well, yeah, I want war, but we should be able to vote on it first. We should feel included on this decision, So that's, by the way, why they're kind of taking this angle of the war powers thing, rather than just straight up like, oh, we should not have war. No, just let the Democrats vote on it first. And again, why is that? Because the Democrat Party, especially the establishment wing of people like Adam Schiff, maybe you could say in opposition to the progressives, are equally as warmongers as the establishment of the Republican Party. So again, keep that in mind. They're not really opposed to this. That's why they're failing to make a real opposition. No, they're just saying, oh, can you inform us first, and let's make up some like fake angle as to why this is unconstitutional. And then, as Adam Schiff is basically suggesting, and then we can go to war, and then everything is happy dandy because both parties will agree on another regime change or something. That's what he's trying to say. That's what he's really trying to say. Keep that in mind. Now, with that said, okay, I think it is, of course, worth noting here once again, okay, he doesn't cite how it's unconstitutional because it's not. Let's go back to that very War Powers Act. The president must notify Congress within 48 hours of military action, aka within 2 days after the fact. Guess what he did? He notified everyone, obviously. So nowhere in the Constitution or the War Powers Act or anything does it say you have to tell all of Congress beforehand what you're going to do for obvious security reasons. So again, what is he even talking about here? And by the way, let's once again repeat here, 60 days also means there's no violation being done here. These are laws already on the books. Now, with that said, Adam Schiff is apparently not the only person spreading this misinformation, of course. Who could forget the wonderful character of Jasmine Crockett? Okay, you knew she was going to have a real zinger of an opinion on this. Apparently, Jasmine Crockett, as you can see here, is fuming that President Trump didn't holler at her. That's right. You should have hollered at me first to strike Iran. Quote, she said here, this is her words, okay, I am a black woman who just happens to be educated enough to know what the law is. If you Google war authority in the Constitution, you're going to see Congress, and how dare you not holler at me. Again, what did I say here? Democrats like literally cannot get out of their own way on anything. Yeah, okay, take a listen here to the high IQ, bright Jasmine Crockett response to what just happened in the Middle East. Okay.
I go back in on Monday. You could have hollered at us on Monday. If you truly felt like there was something, like, there is nothing that they will say that will make me believe that this action needed to take place, and it needed to take place without the consultation of the Congress. All right. Give me one more.
How can the Senate be involved and make them accountable for what they're doing?
I mean,
again, I can't possibly see one reason why, you can disagree with a strike. Okay, that's fine. I have my reservations on it. But I can't possibly see why it would be kept secret that we're doing a top secret military strike using stealth bombers, B-2 stealth bombers in a foreign country that could all go horrible. I can't possibly see the need for secrecy. You should have hollered at me first. Yeah, me, Jasmine Crockett, someone who is a low-level representative. She's not even the leader of her committee, by the way, because she keeps losing the election for it. You should have hollered at me first. Okay. So very intelligent foreign policy analysis here by Jasmine Crockett. Every moment I think to myself, maybe I'm a little skeptical of this Iran stuff. We have Jasmine Crockett to remind us of what the political opposition looks like, so that's nice. But anyways, all right, let's keep listening to the high IQ. My brain cells are just growing every second here as Jasmine Crockett breaks down congressional war powers. Don't forget, she's a lawyer allegedly, so she knows, obviously, and foreign policy. So take a listen.
Listen, y'all was talking about accountability. The systems have broken down. The systems have broken down because people have legitimately decided that they would rather serve him than serve the people that put them into office. Like, I don't really have any, good answers for you, except for the fact that legitimately everything that he does is, against the law. He just breaks the law. And I know that there are some people that think that I just say this stuff because I'm a Democrat. And I can tell you, I have my own issues with my own party.
Sure.
I'm not saying these things because I'm a Democrat. I'm saying these things because I am a black woman in America who just happens to be educated enough to know what the law is. And I can tell you that while...
Clearly not. Clearly not, as we showed you.
Some people want to disparage my credibility and act as if I don't know what I'm talking about. I can absolutely guarantee to you that if you Google war and authority and constitution...
Okay, let's Google it. Yeah. So yes, Congress has the ability to declare war. That's true. That's their authority. There's other aspects to that in terms of what determines war and what doesn't. Okay? Google, by the way. Okay, Google, guys. Google. Okay.
You're going to see Congress. And this thing that's like on my chest tells you that I am a member of Congress. I don't really know. Like, and the biggest problem that we face right now is that we have an administration that does not care about making sure that they abide by rules or abide by the law.
Again, it's just ridiculous virtue signaling. Okay, I'm going to repeat. If you want to pass a law on war powers resolution, that's a fair argument. But to sit there genuinely and be the party of Barack Obama and say, it's unconstitutional for the president to have arbitrary authority on war, that's just ridiculous. It's just like, I understand in American politics, people have short memories, and that's what they're basically counting on here. But even then, okay, I find it to be a little bit disingenuous, to say the least. And that's the angle you're going to take. Okay, you're going to impeach him over this, over something that's going to be in that impeachment trial. And guess what the Trump lawyers are going to say? Hey, Biden did this. Biden actually did some strikes in Iraq and Syria. Oh, Obama did this in 20 freaking countries. Clinton did this in Kosovo. What are you freaking talking about? Reagan did this in, Grenada, El Salvador, other places. What are you talking about? It's just insane, right? And then secondly here, in response to Adam Schiff and this Democrat argument that, oh, you didn't tell us beforehand. Well, according to the White House, at least, this is what they're saying. The White House called Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries before President Trump's strikes on Iran, which I actually think is kind of a dumb thing to do. Maybe you shouldn't have even done that. But apparently they called him beforehand. Chuck Schumer apparently picked up. Jeffries did not. Jeffries was probably asleep or something, right? And so what happened to the narrative, by the way? Chuck Schumer has not come out to corroborate or verify that, but I'm assuming he's just pretending, let them have the attack lines. But okay, so he called the leaders of Congress. Okay, he does no obligation to call all 500 plus of them. He doesn't need to call Jasmine Crockett, okay? But, still. He called the Democrat leader of the House and Senate. One of them picked up. One of them didn't even do it. By the way, Hakeem Jeffries, that same guy, and his friends are now saying, you didn't inform me beforehand. Well, you didn't pick up the phone, dude. You didn't leave me a voicemail. I mean, is this how ridiculous we're going to get over this? Okay. So anyways, guys, there you have it. Democrats just shooting themselves in the foot completely. They can't really even make a coherent message on, okay, we're the historically anti-war people. Oh, but we have neocons on our side. Oh, but the war powers, even though we were the party of Obama, it's just all over the place. And this is, once again, guys, a prime example of why, frankly, despite the whatever happens, I think, on the Republican side, this opposition is not much to write home about, to say the least. But with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.